Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's Reddit series video from the subreddit HFY called The Asimov Pt.4 of 8, written by Shogunsidon. You mean we live in our part of the galaxy? Mathis asked. Captain Lee ran a hand through his short black hair, trying to digest everything that he had heard from his conversation with First Hetek. They were in a main meeting room. He could have called it an operations room if he was inclined to hyperbole, but really it was just a large room with a table and chairs that he used to hold staff meetings. When he wasn't using it, more often nor not, the crew used it to play ping-pong. The Asimov was currently towing the still crippled First Light back to the point where it had left hyperspace. First Hetek thought that it might be easier to plot their course from there once they got the hyperdrive back online. Given the current fragile nature of the alien ship, they were going along at a leisurely pace. It appears that way. Explains why we haven't run across anyone for so long. Apparently, we happen to have evolved in a remote part of the remote sector of a galaxy known for being inhospitable to life. According to First Hetek, they believe that no intelligent life should have ever evolved in this part of the galaxy. We should have died off long ago, or at least have been worked too hard just to survive to ever evolve into a space-faring race. Too much background radiation, stars burning too hot, planets too close or too far from their suns, gravity too high. He made it sound like all the planets were Edens compared to Earth or any of the colonies. In a chaotic galaxy, we happen to live in the most chaotic part. From what he tells me, the galaxy pretty much abandoned us when we were still trying to start fires with sticks. Hard to get a definite timeline, as I'm not sure the translators can convert properly. Captain Lee was taking a drink of water. Dr. Chan spoke up. I might explain the difference I'm seeing in their biology. I would like to be able to do more thorough examination of our friends. I can only do so much here, and frankly, I don't have the expertise. I'm supposed to be mending broken bones and cuts. You're doing fine, Doctor. Can you give me a rundown on what you know? Captain Lee asked. Well, biologically, it looks like we are evolved amongst the same lines. Their atmosphere is pretty close to Earth normal, a little more oxygen than what we're used to, but well within tolerable acceptances. Gravity is much lower than ours, as you said. They do require water, and the sample we got shows microorganisms, some of which resemble things we have on Earth and others are, well, alien. The doctor replied. You're saying they could live on Earth? Asked Mathis. From what I can tell, yes, except the gravity would make them very uncomfortable, and the reduced oxygen would leave them a bit weakened. From what I gathered, most of the other species evolved within a certain band of conditions outside which intelligent life usually can't evolve. We may be an extreme end of that band. There are a lot of similarities in terms of the basic needs when it comes to staying alive. Again, though I'm just talking broad strokes, something as simple as a common cold could wipe them out even if they were otherwise enjoy a nice salad. Although they seem to be strangely unworried about alien pathogens. Salad? Are they vegetarians? No wonder they're so small and weak, Mathis said, laughing. Slow too, said Patterson, the chief engineer. The old man sat on his hands clasped in front of him, leaning back in the rear of the legs, his shiny head only retaining a few tufts of white hair which he rarely bothered combing. They seem to move fine for their size, Captain Lee said. Not that kind of slow. I mean slow thinkers, Peterson replied. Can you elaborate? Dr. Chan asked, thinking that if Peterson thought the creatures were slow, it must mean something, as he had never seen the older man in a rush in a year that he'd been on board. Well, I was helping that one alien, Nimon. I was helping her, and I think it's a her, in the engine room. Apparently, whatever they used to power had blown a fuse, or whatever passes for one. It was still producing, but there's no systems for getting any power. Best I could tell, they had to run it too hard, and the thing was barely holding together. As she was explaining to me how things worked, I could see pretty damn quickly that she needed to reroute a couple things to bypass some blown conduits. I'm not saying I know the stuff works exactly, but the basic principle, you got a power source and you need it directed somewhere. If your tube or wire or whatnot is burnt out or busted, you need to find another way to route that power. Peterson continued. She didn't know that? Mathis asked. No, not to say that she couldn't have figured it out. When she was explaining to me how things work, she obviously knew what she was doing, but for some reason, when you throw a wrench into it, she seems to have had a hard time making adjustments. Once I pointed out possible solution, it seemed like a light would go off at her head. I'm not saying they're stupid, though, Peterson said. These humans must be stupid, Nimmin said as she gently cleaned her fur. Why do you say that? Second Lieutenant asked. He was currently helping her run some tests. With the humans' help, they had restored power and containment to the rest of the ship, and he was glad to not have to wear his suit anymore. I was talking to their engineer about ships, and do you know that these humans used explosives to get into space when they first started? She asked, running over the results. I think your translator heard them wrong. No species would do that. Everyone's masters anti-gravity first before trying to go into space, Second Lieutenant replied. My ears work fine, Second. I know what I heard. The creatures are completely reckless, strapping themselves onto, what did he call them? Rockets? Giant tubes filled with combustible fuels. Even today, they don't even use containment fields on their ship. They rely on their ship's walls to keep in the atmosphere. It's unbelievable that they ever got into space, she continued. Second Lieutenant looked around nervously. He could not imagine going through space with nothing but metal walls to protect you. Anything else than full containment would be suicide. What kind of ship were they traveling in? Basically, it's a piece of crap, Peterson continued. They're relying on a containment field for pretty much everything on the ship. That's why the construction looks so shoddy compared to what we have. Once they get the containment field up and running, they don't worry so much about the exterior, because the containment fields serve as a primary structure for the ship. Their engineering tolerances are way beyond anything we would accept. I'm not saying I saw any actual holes in the hull, but in some places I'm sure it seemed to be awfully close. The Asimov's hull is probably 4 to 5 times thicker than what they have, and way better put together. Is this something common with other species? Pearson asked. She had joined the meeting late, insisting on making absolutely sure that they were on the right course first. Nave usually made quick work of that, but she had asked to stay on the first light and help one of the aliens with something. Common? Hell, it seemed to be the only way everyone else got into space. Nimmin looked at me like I was crazy when I started talking about old rockets that we used. That's why it took them so long to get into space. They picked the lock to discover space travel. We kicked in the door. Eventually, you get through it, but it took them thousands of years to do what we did in a few hundred, Peterson said. I agree. I wouldn't rely on fields, but as a backup measure, they definitely have their uses. Do you think it's something that we can easily replicate? Captain Lee asked. I think it's doable with their help. Last I heard on the subject, we were getting closer to a practical solution, but having a working unit would be a big step, and I'd have to assume, Peterson replied. Anyway, their engine and hyperdrive is still out, and I told her that I would get back and help her. Just wanted to come back, and get some equipment and give you a report. Thanks, Mr. Peterson. Has anyone else seen Singh? Captain Lee asked. He's on the bridge, Lieutenant Pearson said. He's trying to get one of their translations to hook up to our comm system. Last I left him, he was muttering about pheromones or something. He said that he would come down soon. Captain Lee knew this communication operator well and understood that soon might mean a few hours. Once Singh found something interesting, he didn't let go easily. Captain Lee managed to poach him from the Olympus colony world where he had been working as a government interpreter. Singh was born on Olympus and had never seen Earth until Lee offered him the job. In a few years he had been on board, the shy academic had slowly come out of his shell. The man who used to be afraid of Mathis could now joke with the big man easily. Captain Lee took a deep breath. There was a lot to take in. Command had ordered him to not break the news to anyone else that the Lee Guan would meet them at the coordinates he provided them in another day or so. The Asimov had a load of equipment meant for the Elysium, but they would have to wait for a bit longer. He felt a twinge of sadness. He knew when the Laguane arrived, ESA proper would probably take over, and it might be some time before he even got a chance to see Rothler again, and he still had so many questions. His stomach began to let him know that he had not eaten since the official introductions 10 hours ago. He knew a lot of his crew had also been working hard and decided it was time to get everyone something to eat. "You eat other living things?" Varro asked with shock, almost dropping the container she was carrying. Neve could feel herself flushing in her suit. They were in the kitchen and the last light now that the ship was powered up again, but the doctor had said that they had to remain in their suits. Varro was preparing food for the Rothler crew when they had been eating emergency rations for the past couple days when they were trapped in the cargo bay. "Well, the ones that can't talk, we wouldn't eat you," Neve said, trying to make the situation better. "What do you eat?" Varro looked at her for a whole minute, and usually Neve would smile in a situation like this, but she had learned that didn't show her your teeth to a Rothler. "Your people are very strange, Neve," Varro said. "I think you are the first predator species that we have ever befriended. We usually try and stay far away from them. Rothler only eat plants." "We also eat lots of vegetables too," Neve said hopefully. "What are you making?" "This is Captain's favorite. It's basu root and nullet," Varro said. Neve looked at the mixture in the bowl. "The basu root we pour into a pan and cook it, and then we throw in some nullet," Varro said, producing some very dark round berries. Neve smiled. "Space pancakes," she thought to herself as she watched the yellow-furred alien move around the kitchen. Everything was made for Rothler, so Neve felt a bit like a giant trying to find a place to stand without knocking anything over. She had to admit that Varro seemed like she knew what she was doing. The Rothler seemed to be much happier now that they had her in a kitchen back. They had spent a lot of time talking about things that they had seen in space during the few hours it took to get the rest of the ship back online. Varro proved that she was far more from stupid. She was very observant, and Neve thought that she might have gained more useful information talking to her new friend than she got from the data on the second Lytton. The little alien seemed to be able to recall things at an astonishing detail. Compared to what Varro had seen, Neve felt like she had little to offer. Humans had only colonized a handful of worlds, and the pink clouds of Valhalla that seemed so amazing before paled in comparison to ringed planets with tree-sized flowers that Varro had told her about. "Neve, can you please get me a bowl behind you?" Varro asked. Neve looked behind her and saw the shelf. As she reached her pan, she was violently knocked off her feet as the ship lurched underneath her. "3 ships, Captain. They hit us, and now they're heading our way from our position," Lieutenant Pearson said as the other crews scrambled to their posts on the bridge. They had only a few seconds of warning that the ships had dropped out of hyperspace before getting rocked by something. "Obviously not ours, Mr. Singh. Can you hail them with the translator? Commander Mathers, scan those ships and let me know what we're looking at. Lieutenant Pearson, any damage?" "Minor reports coming in. I can't keep up with them and fly the ship at the same time. We need Neve here." "Where is she?" Captain Lee asked, directing another crew member to the seat normally occupied by his young helmsman. "Last I saw her, she was still on the last light," Lieutenant Pearson said, accelerating the ship away from the unknown assailants. "Captain, no response from the new players, but First Hetek is calling us," Singh said. "Put him through and tell the ship to batten down. Tell Zoo to get her team ready as well." "Captain Lee!" First Hetek screamed over the comm. "Those are Malned ships. They found us. I don't know how." "Found you? You didn't mention that they were looking for you," Captain Lee responded. "We must escape, Captain. I can explain later," First Hetek said, his voice straining. "Captain, the ships are coming around, accelerating hard at us. I'm getting energy spikes. I think they're going to fire on us again," Commander Mathers reported. "I can't bring the guns to bear with the last light below us." "Lieutenant Pearson, roll us to port, and I want the Asimov between us and the last light. I don't know what those ships have, but I'm willing to bet that we can take a hit better." "Aye, but we're still attached, Captain. We can't fight back towing another ship like this." "Let's worry about it after," Captain Lee said. "Brace for impact," Commander Mathers said as the ship was rocketed as multiple blasts and Malned ships. First Hetek was almost thrown off of his feet again as the pulse cannons from the Malned attack cruisers raked over the Asimov. He could not see the blasts hit, but he felt them as the hull of the human ship absorbed the impact and transferred the shock to the last of light. Then he saw the 3 malnourished ships streaking off. "All crew, put on your evacuation suits immediately," he ordered over the wired comms as he worked to secure his helmet. He couldn't tell how much damage the Asimov had taken, but he had to believe it was severe. 1 malnourished ship was bad enough, but the firepower from 3 was a match for anything in the galaxy. The last light could offer no help. She carried no weapons. That was not allowed by the malnourished. And all he could do was try and help his people survive and hope the Asimov had some teeth. Suddenly, he felt a slight shudder through his feet. As he looked up, he saw the Asimov undocking. They were leaving us. His heart sank, and yet he felt no anger, only sadness. The human had felt the power of the malnourished, and now they understood why the galaxy lived in fear of them. He did not blame them for running. He would have done the same. The last light was crippled and would only slow them down. He turned away from the viewport as 2 ships separated and began to make his way to the stairwell. He was the first, and they would need him in the short time that they had left. End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this dose of science fiction fun. I hope that you enjoyed. And if you did, please don't forget to support the author from the link down below. But if you want to support this channel, there are links as well down below for you to help with. But the easiest way would be to share this video. And if you are so inclined, subscribe as well. I will see you all in the next episode, and I hope that you all have a fantastic time until then. Cheers.